Welcome back, Button Club members, to another episode of the Safe Sets podcast. I am one of your hosts, Shadow Fury, and with me, as always, is...
Ricky Icebeam.
Yes, sir. Today's podcast episode, what are we going to be talking about today?
Capcom Cup X.
Yes, sir. Right now, Last Chance Qualifiers going down.
Yes, so we're recording this Saturday night, so it's like the end of the second day of LCQ eliminations.
That's right. So we're doing this instead to bring you guys some more content. We're missing out on some top level gameplay. So if you can find it in your heart to like this video, comment to the YouTube channel, subscribe.
You can also comment to the YouTube channel.
Comment, subscribe, share, all that stuff to really help out the channel. So without any further ado, Capcom Cup X is finally here. How have you been enjoying what you've seen so far?
So I've been watching a lot of the LCQ, particularly yesterday's. I've been thoroughly entertained. I would say one downside to watching the LCQ live is that there's long breaks in between the matches.
Yeah.
But the matches themselves are fantastic. The commentary is top notch.
Yeah. Good production value. It looks. I think they're holding it in the same spot that they did last year, also, because a lot of that seems to look a lot, all the same.
Yeah, I'm also a fan of them having like the player cams up on the screen while they're playing. And then I thought it was kind of funny that because of where they put the player cams on the screen, you can't see which character they're using. So below their video, they have to like type in their character's name.
Oh, yeah. Did you see that video of like Daigo in the background looking lost?
No, I didn't see that.
No. People were commenting on Twitter like, I love how Daigo just looks like he just like is there. He just showed up and doesn't know where to go, but he's there. He's having a good time. So speaking of Daigo, how's he doing so far?
He's been eliminated at this time from the LCQ. I think he tied for like 17th, which is pretty far in the LCQ.
Yeah.
I actually didn't see how many players were in the LCQ, but I know that there's a maximum of 512 spots possible for the LCQ.
Oh, okay,
so I imagine I'd be surprised if all 512 slots got filled.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's something less than that. But either way, making top 17 is very difficult.
It's very difficult because this portion of Capcom Cup has been absolutely stacked. There are so many names fighting for that last position for Capcom Cup that in and of itself is a tremendous tournament going on right now, no?
Yes, and so there's so many players in the LCQ that I've been surprised didn't already qualify for the Capcom Cup. Yeah. Players like Tokido, Daigo, Punk, Problem X, there's more. But so many players in the LCQ really fighting for that one spot just to be one of 48 for a chance to win $1 million.
Yeah, man. So just when you think the tournament is getting excited, we have this all weekend. I'm just going to go to the computer real quick so we can look at, in case you're unaware, what's going on for Capcom Cup. So Last Chance Qualifiers going on right now. We will get the finals Sunday. So by the time that you're watching this, the finals should already be going on. So, definitely check that out. And then the following weekend is the group stage elimination. And we get to look forward to Street Fighter League with all that also.
So even more matches. So between the LCQ, Capcom Cup elimination, that, and then the actual Capcom Cup top 16 next Sunday.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Street Fighter this week. It's like Christmas all week for the FGC.
It really is. And you can't compare that to any other type of sport because, we just had our Super Bowl and that's over in a night. But, for this build-up to happen all year long and then to be able to appreciate it for 3 different weekends out of this month is it's a lot of content to digest, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. Evo is kind of like the Christmas because it happens once a year and everyone looks forward to it. But then Capcom Cup is something special. I don't even know what to compare it to.
It's true.
Maybe the Olympics. It's multi-day and
yeah. And then the importance of Capcom Cup. So I would say as far as the prestige of winning a big tournament goes to Evo. There'd be a lot of players that would be content not winning this, but winning Evo, right? Because that on your resume looks really good.
It does look really good.
But the difference for this year is the $1 million prize pool that is associated with winning Capcom Cup X, which is unprecedented. We've never had that much money in the FGC before. So that's going to be, whoever wins is going to be a millionaire right off the rip. It's insane.
Right, and so we didn't actually look it up ahead of time, but we were talking about how previous Capcom Cups were pretty sure the first place prize was closer to like $250,000.
Yeah.
Which pales in comparison to $1 million.
No kidding, yeah. And I'm pretty sure like the last two were that much, but I think for the beginning of Street Fighter V, I think it was only like $150,000. Like I don't think NuckleDu won $250,000 when he won. I think that was only something that happened a little bit later. I could be wrong. Correct me down in the comments if you have the answer. So one of the controversial things tied to Capcom Cup is how the points were divvied up and how you were able to qualify for said Capcom Cup. Do you have any information on that?
So I think we should look it up so it's not just hearsay, but I have a lot of opinions on how the qualifications worked and essentially the reason why so many players in the LCQ are not already in the cup.
Would that be here? Is that this one?
No, I think it was... Actually, I think it was the first one.
Okay.
I think if we scroll down, it shows a list of all the players.
Okay, yeah, right here. Okay, yeah.
So there was only 3... Actually, can we scroll up a little bit? Because I think it explains like the number of qualifiers from each thing. Yes, right here. So there was 18 players from online premieres, only 3 players from offline premieres, which I think should be looked at for next year. 26 players of the 48, so more than half, are from World Warrior, and then 1 from the Last Chance Qualifier, which happens every year. So yeah, I think that having only 3 offline premieres should be looked at.
Absolutely. And because thankfully we are in a post-pandemic world right now, and offline I think just holds a very special place for all of us, and in order to see that too. One other thing I wanted to mention too is some of like the World Warrior and offline premieres was that like when I would try and watch it, it wasn't engaging at all. It wasn't extremely hype. Like the last Tekken tournament that they just had to wrap up Tekken 7 was in front of a crowd, so people were chanting and getting really hype. And some of the other things that I've watched to get to Capcom Cup felt a little on like the stale side and kind of just there's no crowd interaction, there's no real personality, especially when it's the online premieres, because those you're not getting any player cams or any interviews after the fact.
Yeah, and as a player who really enjoys watching tournaments, it was hard to watch any of the online premieres, and it's also hard to watch some of the World Warrior events too. Like I really think the offline premieres is as good as it gets for Street Fighter. Not just for the players, which I'm sure they appreciate not having to deal with online.
Yeah.
But like the production value that you get from having people in person, I think is, and we're seeing it now with the LCQ. Like it's fantastic to watch when we're not on break.
Yeah. Those 5-minute breaks and the repetition of those ads can really start to pile up, and that's one of the reasons why we were talking earlier about it, and my interest at times was dipping, and as soon as you get that time to start scrolling on your phone and you get a little carried away, and then you look up and Daigo's fighting, I should put this down and start watching,
right? Or like you see a really hype match, and so you turn on Street Fighter 6 to play, and then you realize that you've played for 45 minutes and you missed 2 matches.
Yep.
But yeah, if there was shorter breaks, I mean, obviously less breaks is better, but it would have been better for like our attention span to be like, it's only a few minutes in between each match, or there's 2 matches in a row with no break. You kind of get glued to the screen. But having like long breaks in between every single set it's hard to sit there and sit through it all. And
then there were times where like they would take a 5-minute break, come back, and then they would be interviewing people on the couch.
Yeah,
so that'd be like another 5 or 10 minutes, and like it's entertaining at first, and again, but like my attention kind of dips in and out when watching that, because I really want to just see the matches,
Yeah, and so there's lots of times too where like I'll choose not to watch a tournament live. I'll wait for like the next day for the YouTube videos to pop up. Yeah. That way I can watch them at my own leisure. I can pause. I can skip matches if I really wanted to.
And stay off of Twitter so you don't get any spoilers or highlight clips or anything,
Right.
So you want to take a look at who's qualified so far?
Yeah. because it's good too. It shows you who's qualified and how they qualified.
So yeah, your boy Angry Bird, definitely one of the people that I would consider could win this whole thing. Obviously, right? Evo champ.
Right, and it's interesting to say that because it's like, oh, here's the 47 people who are qualified, but we're actually going to specify like which players we think could win it. Mm-hmm. Where you would think that all 47 could win it, but I don't think that's the case.
No, and that's been other things that people were talking about online is like the formatting for how people are getting into this major event, and how there's people that I forget who said it, but they were basically like, I could beat this guy online right now, and here they are, a contender for that $1 million. And then, of course, you run into names like you see some of these here, Angry Bird and Gachikun, and those are the names that you would definitely expect to be there, right?
Right, yeah. And that's a perfect example. Like, Angry Bird and Gachikun, I am not surprised that they're in the Cup.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if they were in the LCQ. But there's a lot of players in the LCQ that I'm surprised are there.
Mm-hmm. And then I'm not familiar with the French scene, but then you got, this gentleman here, Chris Wong, who I don't remember ever hearing of him previous to today. So
yeah, myself either. I mean, he's clearly a strong player. He clearly deserves to be there, especially it being an offline premiere. Like, I would argue that those are much harder to get through than some of the online premieres, especially the ones that had like lower entries. Or the other issue with some of the online premieres is like you have a lot of DQs.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, maybe the player who won the online premiere is totally a strong player and deserves to win and deserves to be in Capcom Cup, but they didn't have to win like 12 matches to do it. It's like they had 4 DQs and then like won 3 matches.
Yeah, that is always a possibility.
But yeah, Angry Bird, Gachikun, definitely contenders to possibly win the Capcom Cup. Definitely deserve to be in there. They're household names that we've seen time and time again. And so it's not a surprise, and they're not like brand new players. There are some players in the Cup that people may not have heard of before, but then you see them play and like, oh, they're just new. Like, they deserve to be here. They're super strong. They haven't been, at the top during Street Fighter V.
Yeah. Because like the new game has brought a lot of people out, and then I'm sure a lot of players that got good at 5 but have taken the opportunity for this new game Street Fighter 6 to, you know what, I'm doing so well in this game, let's start traveling. Let's actually put myself out there and see how far I can get into, which is always nice to see new faces, new names, and catch those upsets, right?
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of IDOM with Street Fighter V. Like, IDOM's been playing fighting games at a high level for such a long time. It just wasn't until Street Fighter V that people started to notice, and they basically begged him to go to tournaments.
So that's a funny story. I remember my first time going to Defend the North, and then he won Defend the North. And everyone was calling him Stoop Kid on the side.
Yeah, Stoop Kid never leaves a stoop.
Because he would never leave. He would never enter these tournaments, even though he was so good. So that kind of blew me away in that moment to be like, wow, like, good thing these people talked him into coming out, because look at he's won this tournament now. And then that just was the catalyst to IDOM being the household name that he is today.
Right, and in that Defend the North that he won, like, people were talking about how strong he was. He beat Punk in grand finals to win that tournament, and he did so pretty convincingly. So, like, to beat Punk at his peak really goes to show you, like, oh, he's on that level. He's not just good for the area. He's not just good for America. He's good, period.
Internationally, because he's beaten such a well-known player like Punk. And because Punk's rise to fame was also through Street Fighter V, right?
Yeah, and again, Punk was good in 4. It's just he didn't go to tournaments. People didn't know who he was until Street Fighter V.
Okay.
So I feel like there's a new crop now during Street Fighter 6 that are popping up now and will pop up, next year and the year after that.
And especially with the addition of modern controls, we have seen not an overwhelming amount of players in modern for Last Chance Qualifier, but I would say a good handful out of all those players. Like, there was a modern Geef earlier, I think a modern Chun, and stuff like that. So I think that accessibility also has brought other people out.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are players who get into Street Fighter 6 on modern controls just because they haven't really played fighting games before, or have played fighting games but aren't good or haven't practiced to get the execution down. play with Modern and then get good at the game and then decide I'm going to actually put in my work and learn to do all these motion inputs so I don't have to get the damage cut.
Reduction and stuff like that. Yeah, because if you can already have a strong mind for the game, which is, I would say, the most difficult part.
Oh, yeah.
Is the mental, rather than the execution. Even though I struggle with both. But,
don't we all?
the execution is something that could come much later, but understanding how the game is played, how to outsmart your opponents, if you can already handle that being a newer player, that speaks volumes already. All right, so let's look at some online premiere guys here right away. Your boy Snake Eyes sticks out to me because
one of the OG Street Fighter 4 pros from America.
Yep, and known grappler main. I've followed him through his very little time in Street Fighter 5 because I know he didn't love that game.
Right, and so I feel like he was successful in 5, but I know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he stayed home a lot instead of going to these tournaments.
Yep. And then some of these other players I don't really recognize. Travis Styles, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I've heard his name toward the end of Street Fighter 5, but again, not like a household name.
Mm-hmm.
Kusanagi, again, sounds very familiar. I'm sure he's done well in tournaments before, but not a household name, at least in my mind.
Mm-hmm. And then you got like these two right here,
yep.
NL and Kaba.
Yep, very much household names. Definitely know exactly who they are, and I remember NL was playing, Cammy in 5, and then I think he switched to Akuma. He played a bunch of different characters. But yeah, Kaba with the legendary Guile. Big fan. Yeah. I mean, you might know of Kaba and not even know fighting games a whole lot. You might have just have been at a major with someone and been like, who the hell is that yelling in the background while his boy's playing? And then, Phenom. DCQ, who's a younger player, but I have heard that name a whole lot more recently, right? So I think he was on, what was it? What was the Street Fighter show?
It was the League in the House though. It was like the beginning of it.
No, not that one. The one that's going on now. I'm drawing a blank. Street Fighter League.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he was on Street Fighter League during Street Fighter 5, and he played Seth.
Oh, okay. Oh, towards the end of it then.
Yeah,
okay.
Towards the end of it. So he's a strong player. He's, maybe not a household name, but I've definitely heard the name before.
Mm-hmm. And then you got your boy Big Bird representing the Marisa, the big body out there.
Yep, and this is what I was going to ask about was, I think because Angry Bird qualified for winning EVO, he doesn't count as having one of the Middle East's slot.
Because he won such a big American tournament. Is that what it is?
I think so.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Mr. Crimson, probably one of the world's best Dalsums out there.
Yeah, maybe number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I there's a handful of Dalsum mains that you could name, but as of right now, Mr. Crimson I think takes the cake with being a Dalsum main.
Right. I mean, just above him is Garnett, but
I haven't heard his I remember hearing Mr. Crimson even already in 5.
Yeah. He won a lot of large tournaments and made it far in big tournaments like Evo and Capcom Cups in the past.
Danka Diaz too was another
he was a Dalsum and Blanca main.
And Blanca, really
interesting. Yeah.
And then you got
Kawano, Evo champ.
Yeah, man, 2022 Evo champ, right?
Sounds right. I could be off, but it sounds right.
Because the last one was 2023, and he's the first person to win with leverless, also, right?
I don't know if that's true. I'm not sure.
Huh?
It's possible.
I know that was the year that 5 out of the top 8 players all were playing leverless, and that was the year where even I had to look and be like, okay, clearly there's a change in the tide here. I might have to start looking at what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think when Daigo switched to leverless, a lot of people were like, oh, it's time.
It's time, yeah. I even seen an interview of him recently that was talking about that switch and why he made it. Even some of the experiments that Takedo was doing to compare the two of them together. And Daigo straight up said if pad was stronger, I'd play on pad too. Whatever's strong is what I want to be playing on.
Right.
Makes sense. And then Knuckle Dew with Cammy right here. I know he's playing a little bit of both Guile and Cammy, but
yeah, and those are characters he's played in the past. He played a lot of Guile and Cammy in Street Fighter 5.
Mm-hmm.
Alongside Armika.
Safe, I only know this name recently also, too.
I played him a lot online a lot in Street Fighter V.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he made it really far, like an online ranked using Urian. But I think he played a number of characters. And so, again, it could be one of those players where he stayed home and grinded and got really good during 5, and now he's showing up to the offline tournaments.
Yeah. And then we got the World Warrior competitors here.
So I'm looking, and it's taking me a little bit to find any players that I know. So Zien in the top right corner.
Yep.
Joe Umarogan I've heard of, mostly from Casa.
Yeah.
The online tournament. He's been doing well there.
Yeah, like the end of 5, again, is when I started hearing and seeing a lot of this name.
Yeah, actually, so I think I didn't hear about Joe Umarogan until after Luke was released in Street Fighter V. He is a Luke main.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I think, I don't know all the details, but I didn't see him getting any results until Luke came out. And that could just be my ignorance and not paying attention, but that's how I heard the name.
Especially when you're looking at like really, really big tournaments. I mean, he might have had some success on like online things or whatever, but to start seeing the name and go, oh wow, that's who that is. Yeah, I say that's a lot more recent. Valmaster, he's an old head, no?
Yeah, he was a top player, Chun-Li in Street Fighter 4, and then I think he tried Street Fighter 5 and really was not loving it, and it seems like he's coming back full force in Street Fighter 6.
Takamura, I'm only more aware of him through also Street Fighter League. Did you catch a lot of Street Fighter League? No, right?
No.
Street Fighter League was more exciting than a lot of these other tournaments were.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the mind game that is played with the home and away team and knowing the team's like player, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the order that those players were going to come in.
Oh, yeah, yep.
So that you could counterpick that on your own to have the advantage if you were home or away. I really thought that was something impressive. And you could see people win the first few games, which had less points on the line.
Oh, yeah, yep.
And then people make a comeback in the last 2. Now it's tied, and there's a first to 1 right after that to see who won. So there was a lot of just really, really exciting matches and sets that went down in there. When Street Fighter League first came out, I was kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know if I like this part of the I really love the individual player and I want to see them do well. But what became great about these teams was that they were filled with such great talent and that you got to see them individually represented and as a team. So I think this year has been the most exciting year so far with Street Fighter League.
Yeah, and I think team tournaments for Street Fighter are a good thing for the players going forward in the future because, like, maybe you're a really strong player, but you're not strong enough to be, like, sponsored on your own because if you go to EVO, let's say you're good enough to make, like, top 50 or something, but like nobody knows who made 40th place at EVO. Nobody really cares.
Yeah.
So who's going to pay for that? But if you're good enough to be like the third player on a 3-player team with 2 other pros who can make top 8 EVO, all of a sudden you're valuable enough to get a paycheck for playing Street Fighter.
Yeah.
So I think team tournaments are a good thing.
And like the kind of mentorship that goes along with that. Maybe you're an up-and-comer, you do the Street Fighter League, and now you are forced around these team members who are pushing you probably just as hard as you're pushing yourself, if not more so, and how much better some of these players can get after that.
Right, and like friendships that you build, like all of a sudden you're regularly sparring with the best of the best.
Yeah, and what that does for you, yeah. So, who else we got here?
Yeah, Fudo. Yeah, but I mean, I'm just seeing so many players. I have no idea who they are, and no disrespect to them. I'm sure you're a great player. I just have not heard of you.
Yeah.
And so, because of that, my opinion is kind of skewed. Where it's like, I've never heard of Shaka 22. You're probably a great player. You'd probably beat my ass.
Yeah. But who are you?
And when I'm thinking about my predictions of who might win Capcom Cup, I'm not thinking that you're in the running because I don't know who you are. I've never seen you play before. So I just have to assume you're not as strong as Mena RD.
Of course. The names that we know so well. There's your boy right there, Mena. I'm talking about this guy for a bit.
Ending Walker, the child.
He's incredible.
He's very, very good.
And he's so young.
I think he's like 16 or 17 now.
Yeah. He's not of legal adult age, that's for sure. You know.
Yes, his parents are with him.
And I know he really rose towards the end of Street Fighter V as a Ryu and then Ed main.
Okay, I only knew him as Ed.
Yeah, he like learned the game on Ryu, and then when Ed came out, gravitated towards that, and that's the character that really made a name for him because no one was playing Ed at that time.
Right, and if here's going to be some funny math. If he was 16 at the end of Street Fighter V, that means he was 9 when it came out.
Oh my god.
So he was learning Ryu as like 9 or 10 years old, and it took him to be 16
in order to
to like win tournaments. That's wild.
That is insane. He's sponsored now, and he's kicking so much ass with Ryu. I've also seen him use Ken and DJ.
Yep.
So
all strong characters. Right?
Yeah. So I mean, I wish him the absolute best, and I know because of his rise recently, he's made a lot of great relationships with Mana and Mr. Crimson and so many other top names that have taken them under their wing, so to speak. So I would love to see him do really well in this.
Oh yeah, I know if Ending Walker wins Capcom Cup or makes top 8, I would not be surprised at all. He's toward the top of my list of I hope they win, and I think that they should do extremely well.
Yeah, I mean, the whole world would blow up if he won
$1 million.
$1 million.
I think I'm gonna assume he's 17 just because I kept hearing he was 16 at the end of Street Fighter V.
Okay,
so without looking up his birthday, I'm just gonna assume he's 17. To win $1 million at 17, that's life-changing.
That is absolutely life-changing. And to have that happen to you at the earliest part of what could be your pro career.
Right, assuming he could play for another 20 years, if not more.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely more, right?
I would hope so. I would hope so.
I'm almost 20 years older than him. You're 20 years older than him.
Jeez. Yeah, we're not giving away any ages on here, though, okay?
We're both 21.
That's right. Yeah, card me, okay? What do you know about Dual Kevin?
So I've seen him play quite a bit as like a North American, strong player in Street Fighter V, but never, at least in my opinion, not up to snuff with like a Knuckle Dew or a Mena or a Punk. Always like the tier just below those players. But so like if he went to an offline tournament and made top 8, I wouldn't be surprised. But as far as I know, I haven't seen him win any of those tournaments. And it's usually like he's beating everyone except for Knuckle Dew, except for Punk, players like that. Which
is what happened most recently at Frosty.
Okay.
He was second to Punk for Street Fighter 6. And that was a really, really good Grand Finals. And I'm pretty sure there was a reset in there also.
Oh, nice. Good for him.
And then you got your boy Nephew. Nephew's been around for a little while.
Yeah, I think Nephew really blew up towards the end of Street Fighter V, and probably with help from Punk. Not only were they like great friends and roommates, but I think Punk really like helped Nephew level up towards the end of Street Fighter V. Like I imagine if Daigo was my roommate, I'd be much better at Street Fighter than I currently am.
Yeah.
So for a player like Nephew, who is up and coming, to get that kind of relationship and be able to play with Punk and talk with him about the game, I would be surprised if it did not help Nephew level up quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. He's also quite the character when you listen to him talk. And if you ever have caught any of his like YouTube content, he's pretty funny.
I'm a big fan.
And
he played Colleen.
Oh, okay, all right.
I'm a big fan of anybody who played Colleen in Street Fighter V.
Yeah.
I played quite a bit of Colleen.
Is it a blonde thing? Is that what it is?
It's not.
No, it's not.
It's that stand heavy punch.
It's that. Oh, okay. It's strictly the function.
Right. Well, I mean, you pick Colleen because of the stand heavy punch, and she happens to have like 90 other tools.
Yeah,
she has like a sweep and a jump and a grab. She has all kinds of stuff. But you pick the character for the stand heavy punch. It's kind of like Guile, right? You pick Guile for the Sonic Booms and the Flash Kicks. He happens to have a bunch of other tools.
Really great buttons and everything else, and an air grab and stuff. But
it's the Sonic Boom and Flash Kick that makes you come back for it. But with Colleen, it's stand heavy punch. That's the button.
So you asked me this earlier, and I didn't really have an answer. But based on what we've seen with the Last Chance Qualifier, Who is in your mind to take it or to be and then at least towards the top?
So let's go over to the this is the Event Hub's website. They're showing live results, and so the Last Chance Qualifier second day is currently going on. At the end of today's competition, the only people left in the LCQ will be the top 16, 8 on winner side, 8 on loser side, and so this is showing the live results. And so it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, this is like the top 12, so 6 on winner side, 6 on loser side. And so I would say it's going to be so hard to win the LCQ. I just have to make a quick assumption that if you're in top 16 but on the loser side, you're most likely not going to win it just because it's a much harder road. So right now I'm mostly looking at the players that are qualified for top 16 on the winner side. What have you seen of the play from these players?
I've seen almost all of Punk's matches. I only caught one of Taquito's. Problem X, I only saw like highlight clips and didn't actually see the whole match. And I got to see like Julio. I think it was like 2 or 3 different matches with his JP that was just looking incredible, super sharp.
And so that was gonna be my next question. Is like, what were your impressions of these players? Like, are they looking good? Or
they are absolutely looking amazing. Punk is Punk, and you can't have a discussion about Street Fighter, period, without talking about Punk and all that he's been able to accomplish. So that goes without saying. Kakaru is someone else who stands out to me big time because he is so fresh. I forget which tournament it was, but he was able to be Angry Bird, and I think like an offline European tournament. That's when he was like perfect parrying every Dragon Lash that came at him. Right. So I have high hopes for him. Problem X is Problem X, and he's been amazing. He is doing so many unique things with Blanca right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good character pick for him right now.
It really is. So those 3 names jump out to me. And Julio's just looking really sharp right now, and he's kind of coming, back from the dead, so to speak. With he was saying in the earlier interview that he had injury.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why he kind of stepped away. He's got arthritis in one of his fingers, and he had like some nerve damage that went up to his like forearm elbow area.
Yeah, I remember seeing in like Street Fighter V that he would like play for a little bit and then like have to take a break because it hurt.
Yeah, even right now he says 3 hours is his cap. After 3 hours of playing, he's got to stop. So he can deal with the pain up until then. But that could be something that comes up in conversation during competitive play at the big event, right?
Oh, like as an issue for him. Like
exactly.
If he has to play so many matches back to back.
Yeah.
If he's in pain.
If he's in losers, even like he's in winner side right now, but this hasn't panned out yet. The Problem X and Julio match. So what if he's in losers? He has to fight now twice the amount of matches to get anywhere.
Right. So for the players that are on the winner side, like even before the LCQ happened, even before I was sure which players were and weren't going to be there, I had my eye on Punk. I was very surprised that he wasn't already in the Capcom Cup. Yep. And I kind of had this idea of like, wouldn't it be amazing if Punk won the LCQ and then won the Capcom Cup?
That would be the most Punk thing he could do, actually, right?
Yep.
And I can even hear it like in his voice during the interview, like, yeah, I just didn't really care all year long, and I figured I'd just come here and mop all these fools, and then, win the whole thing, win the million. And he, being one of the top Street Fighter players, he doesn't have the same accomplishments as winning EVO.
He's never won
EVO. He's never won a Capcom Cup before.
Right. He's never won a Capcom Cup.
He's got so many huge major offline tournaments under his belt as winning them.
Yeah, so many firsts and many seconds and thirds. Like, I would say it's almost like rare for Punk to go to an offline tournament and not make top 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And then who else here?
And even though we keep saying like he hasn't won EVO, he hasn't won Capcom Cup, I believe he's gotten second in both of those tournaments. Because he lost EVO, I think 2017 to Tokido.
To IDOM? To EVO, it was Tokido. Yep,
right,
yep,
and then
right,
Capcom Cup, he lost to IDOM. So second place in both of like the biggest tournaments ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's nothing
to sneeze at. Yeah, absolutely. VX Bao on the loser side. He's kind of...
I believe he was like a Vega main.
Oh, really?
In 5, I think so.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think he main Vega.
Because I feel like I see that name so much more now. And then Hibiki, this Lily player, I got to see him a little bit yesterday. Did you catch any of that?
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his Lily was looking really, really strong. Just watching the sets made me realize, like, I really don't know this matchup at all. Like, I don't run into enough Lilies to learn it.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and she's not that popular of a character, so it's hard to get that matchup knowledge when you're not finding them, especially at a high level, right? So we don't have anyone at Button Club that plays Lily or anything.
And then also, like, because she's not popular, I feel like it's so rare to run into a Lily that a lot of times when I do run into the Lily player, they're not particularly strong.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, well, I can just outplay the player without knowing the matchup.
Yeah.
Which doesn't force me to learn, like, what's plus, what's
Mm-hmm.
negative when it's my turn, or certain setups. Like, I don't even know what whatever safe jumps would look like.
Yeah.
But if I fight Ken, I know what they are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Anytime I feel like I fight a Lily, they have... The name is different, but they have a very similar play style through and through. They're running the same... They're asking me the same questions throughout the match and the set, and it's basically, once you figure that out, you've gotten it, you know?
Right, like a very textbook, like, run and gun.
Yeah. They're going to Spire in. They're not going to command grab right away. They're going to press those buttons, or they'll tick throw you with it, and then as soon as they see you throw a fireball, they're going to do the other one that comes in, or... And then Moke and Nemo.
Yeah, Nemo is another one I was surprised was not already in Capcom Cup. I'm not surprised to see he's playing a character like JP.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding. His Urian, I'd say, was one of the most entertaining to watch out of anyone I've ever seen play Urian.
It was like the troll Urian. I thought like the highest level troll, just like waking up headbutt like a wild man.
Mm-hmm. The setups, the combos, the everything else, the mind games. He is such a strong player. And to even put into perspective the climate of the pro circuit right now for him to be on loser side in Last Chance Qualifier, this might have even gone down already, and we don't know who's in there, but and Moke was looking really, really good with his Chun over MOV.
Yep, yeah, I saw that.
Those were some really good matches too. MOV was doing good for a bit.
Shout outs to MOV, another strong player that, if you told me he was in Capcom Cup, I wouldn't be surprised.
And even seeing like the 17 here right now, I'm also noticing Oil King.
Yep, Daigo, Sako.
Yeah, there's Alex Myers and stuff like that.
Yep,
and Zaf.
Our very own Zaffarino.
Yeah.
I don't know if he made it that far, but if we scroll down a little bit. Yep, Alex Smith came 33rd.
What a G. He's incredible. to the way he puts himself out there, to watch him play, like he's locally a name, right?
Yes, locally, like if he's at a tournament, it's like, is he gonna win or is Zaf gonna win? No, it's not like it's like he wins by default unless another player shows up that we all think could take him down.
Yeah. And what an absolute sweetheart. Nice person.
One of the nicest.
Yeah. Stick modder, everything.
And I say that about a lot of the people in our local FGC just because so many of them are so nice, but he really is like...
Yeah, he's a gem.
Yes. I don't recognize any of these other... Paladin.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of surprising that he's down this far. 49th in the LCQ.
I was going to say that's a bit of an upset.
But then again, there's so many strong players. Like we saw, Tokido. Tokido's in the winner side, but I mean, like Daigo's out of the tournament, and like players like Oil King. It's very possible he ran into players of that caliber early and just
absolutely
zigged when he should have zagged, and
I forget
last round, last hit.
I forget who he lost to. I remember like seeing him lose, and obviously he was wearing it and looking pretty upset. But he's another young individual.
Yeah, how old is he? Is he like
16,
17?
He is 16.
He's 16. Yeah, that's wild.
And because I forget, I think Punk was kind of smack talking him a little bit he either beat him or something. He was like, oh, these 16-year-old kids and all that, like just coming into the scene, beating me in this game.
Drive rushing like a madman.
Yeah. But him and Ending Walker they seem pretty tight. They are regularly training with each other, especially since they're both playing Ryu. And they both are of similar age, so I'm sure there's like a lot of good camaraderie between the two of them that has to do with those.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them being the future of Street Fighter.
Oh yeah.
2-3 years down the line, winning Capcom Cups.
You
know, they'll be the new Punk.
Yeah. And then, so that's it for the Last Chance Qualifier, really.
So I guess the question is, if you have to pick one player to win the LCQ, who would you put your money behind? And what stinks, too, is there's strong players that aren't popping up here because that hasn't been completed yet. Like, there's 2 more for winner side and 2 more for loser side that hasn't been populated. And I'm not even sure who could be filling those slots. I'm not paying attention to who's playing right now.
Yeah.
But I guess if you just look at who's here, of these players that are popped up on this winner side and loser side of the LCQ so far, if you have to pick one.
If I gotta pick one, I'm not a betting man.
Neither am I.
But, I mean, Punk. Punk all the way.
Yeah, I have to agree.
It's
Punk.
Punk not being in this Capcom Cup is a major upset.
Huge. Very surprising.
And keeps the Capcom Cup X devoid of his talent and all that he brings and his hype and everything else. Say what you want about Punk as the individual, the trash talker and the pop-offs and everything else. But his skills can back it up, and if anyone could do it, it would be him. If I could, for second and third, just for a hypothetical, Kakaru and Problem X, I think. And I'm picking on the winner side because obviously I think they have the best chances.
Right. Like, there's a few strong players on that loser side, like Moke and Nemo. But them being on loser side, it's so much harder to win. I'm not going to bet on someone who already has
who's already in
their belt.
Yeah, exactly. They're already in the deficit. So if anyone could do it, it's Punk. Kakaru is up and coming and very fresh and definitely has the skills. Plus, he's playing JP, so I can see that happening. And I'd also be really stoked for Problem X.
Yeah, for me, Punk's number one. Like I said, even before I started watching the LCQ, I wasn't even sure which players were showing up to it. I was like, Punk all the way. Punk's going to win it. So Punk's my number one. From seeing him play yesterday, Problem X is my number two. And for number three, I have to go to Tokido. I mean, he's in the winner side of the LCQ. And I feel like because he's been so good for so long, people kind of sleep on how good he actually is.
I think him and Daigo, I find that they take longer to adapt to some of the newer things. So, of course, they are great players because they're pedigree great players, but how well can they adapt to everything else that's going on? Like, I feel like Tokido will find his foot. If he doesn't find it this year, he'll be just as strong, if not stronger, for next year.
Well, next year he'll have Akuma.
Yes, that's true. Yes. He'll have Akuma even for Evo.
Right.
Technically, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting to think that, like, from my memory, like, I remember when Street Fighter V first came out, Tokido and Daigo were both playing Ryu.
Yeah.
And they both did pretty well, but, like, they didn't win Evo or Capcom Cup or anything like that. Yeah. And so it wasn't until Daigo switched to Guile and Tokido switched to Akuma that all of a sudden they started seeing these big results. And I feel like that might be where Tokido is now, where, like, he's really not a Ken main. I think Ken's just the most similar character to Akuma that's out, which is like how he played Ryu in the beginning of 5.
Yeah.
So this might be his Ryu year, playing Ken in 6.
That makes sense. Because Ryu was considered strong in the beginning of 5, no?
He was considered strong, but I think there were so few characters that it was like, he feels like Street Fighter, so I'm going to play this character. Yeah.
He's the best out of this 16, really, right? So,
but like I don't even think he was the best. I think he was just like a functional tournament character, and people didn't realize how good like Rashid was, or like Karen or Armika.
Yeah,
I think those are probably stronger characters than Ryu, but it was like Ryu's perfectly functional, and we have 20 years experience playing this character. We'll just use this.
Yeah, makes sense.
So I think that's enough for the LCQ. Let's go back to the Capcom Cup qualified players and start to fantasize, who do we think could win? I mean, we just each picked 3 players from the LCQ. I think it would be good for us to kind of scroll through and basically pick our top 3 each.
Okay.
Here.
Well, I don't have to scroll too far to have one in my hat.
Who is that?
Angry Bird.
Is he your number one?
No, I don't think so.
He's top 3.
He's top 3 for sure. I actually the people that I'll probably pick could. Either one of them could win it. It would just be like, these are the 3 strongest. Angry Bird all day for me is up in there. Evo Champ, he's so dedicated. There was a Red Bull released a short that had to do with him and his relationship with Big Bird. Mm-hmm. And the way, did you get to watch it?
I did not, unfortunately. Not yet. I will watch it.
It's really, really good. It's pretty short, and it just goes to show you, like anything, how 2 friends can really, really push each other. And his name, Angry Bird, is not just a game tag.
I'm sure it was his gamer tag before that game came out.
Well, they said that he actually kind of looked like him. When he gets mad at the game, he gets red. He looks like the bird. But he plays with emotion. Yes, that's what really brings him. And that was something that Big Bird basically said, like, I can play a little more level-headed than he can. But sometimes one of those attributes brings you further than the other, right? It really just depends.
Right.
Let me see here. Obviously, Mena.
Yeah, that's an easy pick. He's won 2 of them already.
He's won 2. It would be out of this world for him to win a 3rd one, and I think that would just keep him in the conversation of one of the best ever, because no one else has won 2, let alone the 3, right?
Right. Yeah.
It'd be like the Lance Armstrong of Capcom Cup, right?
Right. I know there was a conversation online recently where he was talking about, like, he would love to in the future be regarded as the best fighting game player of all time. And the argument came up was, like, if you win all the Street Fighter tournaments, it doesn't make you the best fighting game player of all time. It makes you best Street Fighter player of all time.
Yeah.
So you have Angry Bird and you have Mena. Those are 2. So who's number 3? It's tough. There's so many good players.
I mean, okay. I was gonna Xian. He's a legacy player. He's got the tournament experience. He could do it. Knuckle Dude could do it, but I don't think he's really found his footing.
Well, to be fair, he did win the first Capcom Cup in Street Fighter V.
Yeah, but we're talking already 8 years ago? 7, 8 years ago?
Yeah, but I mean, new game. I mean, when he wins in a new game, he could do it again.
I think you mentioned it before, and now I'm kind of stuck on it. I would love to see Ending Walker win. He might not. It would be great to see him in top 3, but man, I would lose my mind if this kid won Capcom Cup. What about you?
So I agree that it would be exciting to see Ending Walker. If we scroll back up to the top, let me pick 3 players. So I'm going to get a few unconventional picks. Like, obviously, until he wins the LCQ, which I believe he will, Punk's going to be a pick, but he won't be in this 3 for this conversation. I'm going to pick 3.
Yeah. He's not there yet.
Yeah, I'm going to pick 3 players who are already qualified. So I'm going to pick a couple of players that you may not think of. Like, I'm not going to pick Angry Bird. I think winning EVO and winning Capcom Cup is hard. Like, obviously, if you're good enough to win EVO, you're good enough to win Capcom Cup.
But can you do it in the same year?
Yeah,
right?
It's kind of like with Mena. It's like, can he win 3 in such a short time period? Mm-hmm. Is he really that much better than everybody else? It's a tough sell. So I'm going to go ahead and say Snake Eyes.
Ooh.
Because I think he's the only Zangief that's doing anything. And when I saw him win the online premiere that he won, he did it so convincingly.
He dominated.
And that was relatively early, I think, in the qualifications.
A couple of months in, I want to say. And, like, the buzz around him doing that was incredible.
Yeah, so I think if he's, done his homework, which I think he should since there's $1 million on the line, I think he can go really far. So I'm going to go ahead and say he's a contender for the $1 million. I'm also going to say Phenom, because I don't know why everybody sleeps on Phenom. I would say that, Punk is so good and so dominant, but Phenom's, like, right there with him. Like, every time they fight each other, it's like a coin flip on who's going to win. And I remember there was a tournament. I think it was an invitational. I forget what it was exactly, but it was relatively early in Street Fighter V. It might have been, like, in 2017. and there was a big prize on the line, and I can't remember the prize. It might have been like $250,000 or something. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Phenom basically won he beat Punk with Nakali. He popped him up with the stomp and did CA, and it whiffed. And do you remember this?
Yes, I do. Now that you mention it, yes,
and it's like the skill level between him and Punk is razor thin. They're essentially, in my mind, equivalent skill level, and not everybody sleeps on him. So Snake Eyes, Phenom, and then let's scroll down a little bit. Let's keep on scrolling.
Oh, okay. I thought you were gonna. I'm looking at Kawana, Knuckle Dude.
I honestly, it could be me because I'm a Luke main, and I do believe Luke is a very strong character. I just don't see the strongest or the highest tier characters winning this. Like, I don't think a JP is gonna win. I don't think a Luke's gonna win. I'm just not seeing it.
Really? And there's a lot of JP Lukes here, so you would think they would have the most chances of winning, right? Because there's so much representation.
Yeah, I just don't see it, and part of it is because they have so much representation and everyone regards them as the strongest characters. I feel like a lot of players have done their homework and they know the matchups inside and out.
Okay.
That being said, I also don't think like a Dalsim's gonna win. I just don't think he's a good character, but he's not S tier. I just don't think those characters are gonna do it. So if we keep scrolling down, I got to pick Ending Walker too. Yeah. I really want him to win $1 million.
Yeah.
Not only that, but he's really, really strong. Like, when you watch him play, like, if you didn't know he was a teenager, you wouldn't expect that.
True that, yeah.
Like he doesn't just play like fast and loose the way you would expect a teenager to play. He plays so solid and so grounded.
Calculated.
I mean, he's qualified for the Cup with Ryu of all characters. So yeah, those would be my three. It's going to be Ending Walker, Snake Eyes, and Phenom.
Interesting picks for sure.
But of course, none of that matters because Punk's gonna win the whole thing.
Oh man. Well, I guess we'll have to unfortunately wait and see. Leave in the comments down below. Maybe by the time they're watching this, it might be all done though, right?
Well, not the Capcom Cup, just the LCQ.
Just the LCQ, yeah.
Because this should release probably Sunday night or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let us know who you think's gonna win Capcom Cup X. Pick three the way we did. Pick three.
Yeah, there you go. Good call.
Because it's too hard to pick just one.
Yeah.
And if you're just picking one, a lot of people are picking Mena, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
So give us your top three.
Hell yeah.
Any order.
And then
can we take a look at the prizes? Because we keep talking about the $1 million. One player's gonna win $1 million. But there's a lot of money on the line.
That's true.
Could we actually zoom in on this a little bit?
Yep, I think so, my friend. Oh, but it did everything.
Well, that's fine. Let's zoom in everything, and we'll just scroll so that it's right above our heads, the prizes.
But then,
it zoomed everything.
Yeah, it zoomed up there also.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. You got to zoom in just the browser. So I think if you hit the three dots on the right, there should be a zoom. Here, right there, in the middle.
Zoom. Bam. Oh. And then we lost it.
So let's just zoom in a little bit more and then scroll to it.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. There we go.
So, yeah, right there. So now everybody can see it.
Yeah.
So first place gets $1 million. Second place gets $300,000, which is still a lot of money. Like, obviously, if you get second place, you're going to be pretty upset because you were so close. But $300,000 is a lot. Like, without going through the history, I'm pretty sure that's as much or really close to how much as what first place had won in Capcom Cup in previous years.
Yeah. I think the most was $250,000. So you're still doing better than what previous winners have done. That's a lot of money. Nothing to shake a stick at. Of course, there's a $700,000 deficit there, but hey, man, to the victor goes the spoils, and that's still good living money for a bit.
Yeah, but imagine dropping a combo for $700,000.
I mean, and that pressure alone could break anybody, let alone like and that statement falls into so many other things. The throw you didn't tech for $1 million, the drive rush you didn't check for $1 million, like everything that even the simplest of fighting game interactions all boils down to that $1 million.
Right, and when you think about it, when it comes down to grand finals, it's basically like, hey, we both won $300,000. Now we're doing a $700,000 money match.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's wild.
I can't imagine the pressure.
I'd crack.
Oh my god, I'd crack on ranked matches, let alone that. Are you kidding me? Good lord. I'd probably pick the wrong character. I'd screw up at character select or something.
Pick modern controls.
Yeah, like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing.
And yeah, so second place being $300,000 is very respectable. Third place being $200,000. I'm actually surprised that third and fourth place are so close behind in prizes.
Mm-hmm.
The real heartbreaker is going to be for the two players that come in fifth, because they are like, one combo drop, one mistake, one jumping away from winning $100,000.
Yeah.
And at least in my mind, winning $100,000 is a ginormous prize.
Yeah, absolutely.
Winning $10,000 is like you basically got compensated for your time, which isn't great.
That's true, especially when you're considering the. It's not just the work of this one event; it's the work throughout the entire year, the sacrifices you've made, traveling, the online contests, and things like that. There's so much that goes on to create that that entire year's worth of work. For the 10,000, like you said, that's basically just a recompensation of your time and your efforts. When this is winning, fourth place is winning.
Fourth place is a salary.
yeah, 100%. Yep, that's your year salary. Where this is like, obviously it's great money. Who would be upset about making 10 grand? But how much did it cost them to make that 10 grand, right?
Right, and how close were you to winning 90,000 more, 10 times as much?
That's true, because that's a whole extra digit off from fourth place, right? So you go from a 5-figure income to 6 figures right there.
Yeah, and so fifth being 10,000, obviously much worse than fourth place. The two players that tie for seventh get $7,000, which is not that bad. The ties for ninth getting $5,000. The ties for 13th getting $4,000. And so I'm assuming that means that there were two tied for each of those places, which would mean, let me do the math really quick. So there would be 14 players who get $4,000 and up, which means there would be, 34 players that get $2,000.
That gets some money.
Yeah, because the eliminated from group qualifying would be, well, actually, that would mean I think there's 16 players they get
that makes more sense. Yeah.
So then there's 32 players get $2,000 each, which again isn't really a prize at that point. You've made it so far. You potentially won the LCQ, which the LCQ has no prize whatsoever.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, we looked that up earlier.
I mean, essentially the prize of the LCQ is you're guaranteed this $2,000.
That's true. Yeah. And honestly, for Capcom to go beyond here, I think says a lot, right? Because I didn't expect it to go that far down. I only thought top 8 would make money.
Oh, or top 8 would win a substantial amount, and then all the others would make some low, like 1,000 or 2,000 to everyone.
Basically, yeah. So that's actually like not too bad considering.
Yeah, because essentially, I'm pretty sure because it says those not eliminated from group qualifying. I'm assuming that means, if you made top 16, at worst, you made $4,000. And so it's 17th all the way down to 48th that win the 2,000.
So is there anything else you want to talk about with this?
I'm just super hyped that we're going to have a millionaire playing Street Fighter.
It's amazing. This is the years and years of discussion of people saying, FGC versus esports. Can we make that esports money? Can we get in there? And then for Capcom to be doing this, because I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you know what people made in 2023 at Evo?
Evo?
At Evo,
I think it was low.
It was around here, right?
Right. I without looking it up at the moment, I'm assuming winning Evo was like 20K or less.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, and that is considered, it's because Capcom Cup is completely focused on Street Fighter, where Evo is focused on so many other games and being the champion of that. So this really, really steps it up a notch. And this Capcom Cup X would be exciting regardless.
Oh
right?
yeah, I would be hyped. I'd be watching it. We'd be doing a podcast, no matter how big or small the prizes were. I mean, if the prizes were really small, we'd be excited to do a podcast because we have a lot of crap to talk.
Yeah.
Like if first place was 100K, would be pretty upset.
Yep. But being that this is what it is now, and how this is the first of its kind for esports and the FGC, it's absolutely amazing.
And I think it makes a lot of sense that they're doing it for the first year of Street Fighter 6. What I really hope is they do this every year.
Okay, that's a great topic.
I think $1 million for first place at Capcom Cup every year is super hype, and it keeps the ball rolling. I think that if they were to drop down next year to like 250 or even 500,000, I think it's going to be a lot less exciting.
Now, is that only because it's year 2, or is the lifespan of Street Fighter, where we would say what, 6 to 8 years,
sure,
more or less, right? So on the last year of Street Fighter 6, is it still as important to have that amount of money there? Is that something that us as viewers really care about? Can Capcom sustain $1 million every year? Well, technically $2 million.
Right, because the total prize pool is closer to $2 million. Right?
Exactly, yeah. Because if you're gonna pay everyone else, can Street Fighter make that happen with the money that it gives to Capcom for them to be able to invest every year $2 million from here on out?
Yeah, it's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
But as a spectator, I think it would be amazing if they could. If they can keep giving first place $1 million year after year, and it's like an annual thing. Like, yeah, it's the $1 million tournament. This time, no, it's that time of year again for us to make someone a millionaire.
Yeah, that brings me back to like the game show. Can you imagine if after a few years, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire turned into Who Wants to Be a Half a Millionaire, right?
Exactly. It doesn't have the same.
The show appeal would just completely dip.
Yeah. Or really wild is if they were to somehow maintain the $1 million a year every year, and then you have a player like Mena who wins multiple of them.
Yeah.
Being a multiple $1 million champion.
So a couple of things I want to talk about. Now we spoke a little bit about how Capcom Cup has run so far this year, right?
Yep.
And there are some people who have spoken online how they were dissatisfied with how things were set up, and how players can qualify for Capcom Cup. And some people like the way it was previous. Some people think it's better this year. What do you think of that topic?
So I'm mostly upset with the outcome of the qualification process. Like, if the qualification process was exactly the same, but all the players that have already qualified besides the LCQ, like that 47 out of 48, were mostly players that I've heard of and are really strong and have, won offline tournaments before, I wouldn't have too much to say about it. But because there's so many players in that top 47 that I've never heard of.
About half, maybe? Less than half?
I would argue more than half.
Really? Yeah.
I would, without sitting down and counting it, I would say of those 47, there's probably like close to 30 of them I've never heard of before.
Wow, yeah.
And so I would argue that there's a lot of players that are in the 47 that couldn't win the LCQ.
Yeah.
And the LCQ is not normally that the player that wins this is, has a good shot of winning the tournament. The LCQ is normally like, oh, all the pros that you expect to be in Capcom Cup are already here. Who's the local champion? No, who's like the IDOM?
The underdog, right?
Yeah, who's the underdog that's going to come in here, win the LCQ, and then, maybe make top 16 and kind of make a name for themselves. But this year's totally different. This year it's like the majority of players in the Capcom Cup are like those players that you think of where, maybe they could do well in an LCQ situation. But it's kind of the opposite, where most of the players in that top 16 for the LCQ you would expect to already be in the Cup. And so because the outcome of the qualifiers, I'm basically just not happy with it, then I'm saying, well, the only thing that we could change is the process. Modify the process to get the results that we all want to see. We want to see Daigo in there. We want to see Tokido in there. We want to see Punk. And, no shade to the players who are already in the Capcom Cup, but if I haven't seen you before and you haven't been winning offline tournaments and you're not making a name for yourself the way that Ending Walker is, which, he's also relatively new to the competitive scene in Street Fighter V and Street Fighter VI, but he's already kind of proven himself to be strong enough to deserve to be there. So if you haven't done that, then I can't help but assume that players like Tokido and Punk and Daigo deserve to be there a little bit more.
Because those are the players that you also want to see. You want to see how they're going to fend for themselves in this huge, huge tournament. And to have them missing feels a little empty.
Yeah, and if you were to take it to an extreme and take it a step further and say, what if the handful of players that we do know their names and we do expect them to do well, who are already in the Capcom Cup, well, what if none of them qualified? What if every player that was in Capcom Cup was some seemingly random player who just plays online? I wouldn't be very interested in watching Capcom
in the whole
Cup.
Thing, even if it's for the million, right?
Yeah, it's for the million. I'm still gonna watch it. I'm a big fan, but I'd be way more upset. I'd be very upset, and I wouldn't have names to root for, players that I knew. It's just so strange. It'd almost be like if you're a big fan of, let's say, baseball, but you watch American baseball and you have your favorite team and there's a handful of players on other teams that you really root for, and you're watching Japanese baseball. You're I don't know any of these guys. I can't be as excited.
I'm not invested in this in any way, right? I don't know these players. I haven't followed their career or seen enough of it to follow, to know. So it is what it is, right? The stakes feel a little bit lower for you because you're not emotionally invested in seeing these players that you win.
And that's exactly it. It's the emotional investment. It's that's why I'm emotionally saying I would rather see Daigo in there. It's not logical. He didn't win enough tournaments. He didn't win the LCQ.
Yeah.
He doesn't. No. He legitimately didn't earn his way in there.
Yeah.
But if the process was different,
he could have.
I would argue he should have. But again, it's an emotional response. But I think that's a lot of fighting games in Street Fighter in general. It's an emotional game. We get emotional when we watch it. We get emotional when we play it. We want to feel emotional for the players that can, pull those feelings out of us.
Yeah. Not me, of course. I've never once gotten emotional with this game. Never, not once. Not even this past Monday, even. Never.
We can talk about it.
I'll lay on the futon. You can get your pen and paper out. Tell me who hurt you this Monday. So I know in the past it was all points, right? You gained points based on your placing, so you could be someone who was regularly top 8 and be able to make it into Capcom Cup because you've accumulated those points. This year, it was all about you had to win these events in order to make it in, right?
Right, and as far as I'm aware, if you got 8 second places, I believe that doesn't mean you qualified for anything.
Exactly, yeah, which is why this Last Chance Qualifier is so stacked.
Right, and why players like Punk, without fishing through the results, I'm pretty sure he got second and third places in the tournaments he went to in these qualifiers, which in the past would mean he has a buttload of points, and this year it means absolutely nothing.
And I think that. So imagine those points kind of representing a way of seeding that. Right? And that's how they've done it in the past too, right?
Yeah, I believe so. That if you had the most points, you were seeded first. Because in the past, I think it was 32 players, 31 plus the LCQ.
Yeah.
And so I believe the way they did it was if you had the most points, you were seeded first, and then in round 1, you fight the LCQ champion.
Ah, okay.
So they were essentially seeded 32nd.
Yeah.
And so if that's the same thing, or if they were to do something like that this year, that would be really unfair because you're taking the number 1 player by points and stacking them up against who I would argue is probably in the top 8 in skill level because the LCQ is so hard to win this year.
Yeah. So speaking of seeding and how accumulation of points makes sense for seeding,
we got to talk about the groups.
We have to talk about the groups. You know what?
If we go to event hubs, they have all the groups.
Okay, yeah, right here. Okay, I see it. Okay. So these groups were picked at random, right? They were all just pulled from this machine that had them.
Yeah, like bingo.
So to a point, I think that it could be considered fair because if this is the best of the best that's qualifying for your tournament, any one of these individuals could win it. So how do you seed number 1 in the world to number 1.5 in the world because he edged him out in points or this and that. So there's a part of me that saw the random pulling as fair because everyone is so close in skill. Well, you would think anyway.
That's what I was going to say. You would think. That's a very big if.
But because of how this year has panned out and there are more, like you said earlier, lesser known players in our world championships, the random kind of seemed like a miss for me.
Right. And like it could have turned out fine. It could have turned out that, of the groups, each group had like 2 or 3 players that are known players that we expect to go far.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, the way the polls went, most of these groups had like 1 or 0 top players in it. And 1 or 2 of these groups are extremely stacked.
Extremely stacked. So let's go ahead and look through this. This is Capcom Cup X Group A.
Yeah, and, no disrespect to the players that we're not going to say are like, oh, they're the killer in this group. I'm sure you're great.
Of course, yeah.
For Group A, there are 2 killers that I can see.
And that would be Kawano and Phenom, because you...
Yep.
Joe Rogan, maybe, right? If there was a 3rd slot, I would probably put him in there.
Potentially, but I think there's, a huge gap between Evo champion and a player who can make top 8s.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then... Oh, should I zoom in on this more? Would that be better?
Sure. Yeah, because we're really only looking at one group at a time.
Is that better? Yeah, I think that looks much nicer.
Yeah, so then let's talk about Group B really quick. Just with a quick glance, I see 1, maybe 2.
Yeah, I see Big Bird and Nephew. Those names stand out to me big time.
And Big Bird's the big one. I mean,
yeah.
Like I said, Big Bird's the strongest player in this group, and he has very little competition. I'm sure Chris Wong is very good. I haven't really seen him play very much. He won one of the 3 offline events.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if we're being generous, we say there's 3 good players, but it's like Big Bird is the 1, and then Chris Wong and Nephew are kind of like 2 and 3 behind him.
Yeah.
But ultimately not a super stacked group.
No. With about half of the group being a recognizable name that, we know can do well in tournaments, right?
Right, and again, no shade, but Destroy Godge, Shaka 22, and Despair King, I've never heard of you before.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you do well. I hope you prove me wrong.
Of course, yeah.
But without knowing who you are, like I said, it's kind of like the Japanese baseball analogy. It's like, I just don't know that I can root for you.
Because even look where they're from.
Right, and again,
Argentina.
Nothing wrong with those regions. They're just lesser, less pro players from those regions that we know their names.
Yeah.
And, for all we know, Destroy Gods could be the next Punk. He could be the best Guile player in the world.
Yeah.
But again, without the information, I have to make some assumptions.
Yeah. Not even just the information, but the like the more test results you get back, the more. So like, I'm glad that he's done well here, but I don't know what he was doing in 2017 or shortly after the pandemic. Where was he at skill wise, right?
Right.
And then we got Group C here.
Yeah, there's 2 that pop out in my mind.
Knuckle Dew and
Crimson.
That's right. Yeah.
Easy. And again, a 3rd would probably be like DCQ.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
But yeah, if I had to pick 2, it's going to be Knuckle Dew and Crimson, and so this is also not a stacked group.
Group D.
And then, really quick, how many players make it out of these groups? Is it top 2?
That's kind of what I was just wondering. Is it 1 winner, 1 losers? Right?
Well, how many groups are there? Because there's going to be 16 players in the end. If there's 8 groups, that would mean
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. So I think the way it's going to work is the top 2 are going to make it out, and I wouldn't be surprised if the number 1 from each group makes it out on winner side, and if the number 2 makes it out on loser side for the top 16.
That would make sense. And then even here for Group D, Gachikun. And Valmaster?
And Takamura, like those 3, I've never heard of Gamao Solving or Mike X. Sorry, I've never heard of you. But yeah, so I would say Gachikun's like the clear favorite for Group D.
Yeah.
And then Valmaster and Takamura like the 2-3 behind him.
Yeah. Because Takamura's pretty new.
Relatively. I think it was like
new, right?
Maybe like 2017, 2018 for Street Fighter V. Okay. He was doing really well.
And I've only really known about him more because he was in Street Fighter League.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of him before that, but he wasn't like winning tournaments. It was like he was making top 8s.
He was making a name for himself, yeah. And that name, when you see what he looks like, I'm expecting, a Japanese player or something, and
Belgium, I think.
Yeah, Belgium, yeah. It's a very interesting name to contrast. And then, Valmaster, he's an old head. He's been doing it for a long time. He has the pedigree to do it. But my number one pick for a Group D would be Gachikun all day.
Yeah, easy. I don't think anyone's surprised.
Yeah. Group E. Ooh, yeah.
There's 3.
Yeah.
But then there's 3 that I've never heard of. So I just have to assume that the 3 players I've heard of are going to wash the 3 players I've not heard of.
Yeah. That's what you'd expect anyway.
And so just to call it the names, Snake Eyes, Fudo, Zien are all extremely strong players, from the Street Fighter 4 era.
That's true. Yeah, all from 4, yeah.
Well, you could technically say Snake Eyes is from Street Fighter 2 because he won EVO in 2010, which was before.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like before he made a name for himself in Street Fighter 4, he was really a Street Fighter 2 player.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then as far as I'm aware, I think he really dove into 4 because there wasn't much competition for Street Fighter 2 anymore. But yeah, he won EVO in HD Remix, Zangief.
Damn, I didn't know that. And is he the only Zangief I've seen so far?
I wouldn't be surprised if he is.
Yeah, he's the only Zangief I've seen so far. There was that other Zangief in LCQ, and then we got... Okay, so here's the bomb of it all, right?
Because not only I see 4 players out of the 6 that are extremely strong, but, so strong. Like in some of the other groups, I was saying, this one player is number 1 in the group, and these other 2 are 2nd and 3rd, or they could win, but they're probably fighting for 2nd place. In this group, you have 4 that would be the top dog in any of these groups.
Absolutely, and this goes to show you what the random draw, how they did these groups, really kind of flips the tournament on its head because. Not that these other groups are underwhelming per se, but they are by comparison here because half of this group, like you said, could win. Mena Kaba, that's a team kill on there. That's also super unfortunate.
Right.
So you've got Evo Champ and Capcom Cup Champ all in one.
You got Ending Walker, who we would love to see go far.
Yeah.
And he's a very, very strong player, and it's unfortunate that... it's unfortunate for any of these players to be in this group.
Yeah, seriously. Can you imagine being Nero and
Lashar?
You'd be like, holy crap. That is unfortunate. I think I would have liked to have seen it seeded a little bit differently. Like I said, it makes sense to a point, but it makes sense when it comes down to points because there's no seeding here that rewards the better player at all. It was all by chance, really. So, like you said, we're going to get 2 out of this group also.
Right, which means, to be fair, I'm just assuming that Nero the Boxer and Lashar are not going to make it out of this group, which means only 2 of them are making it out, which means 2 out of these 4 extremely strong players who have a very good chance of making it far, maybe not winning, but making more money in the cup, are going to get eliminated early.
Yeah.
Because 2 of these players, 2 of these 4 that we're naming, are not going to make it into the top 16, that means 2 of these players are walking home with $2,000, which is sad to say.
And if I was a betting man, who's making it out of here is
Mena and Angry Bird.
Mena and Angry Bird all day. Not that I don't believe in these other 2 players, but they just haven't had the same accomplishments that Angry Bird and Mena have. I know Kaba is a close second, and Kaba actually beat Mena at Defend the North last year, which that was a really big deal for him. But this is a lot of big fish in a very, very small pond right here.
Right, and like I said, it's unfortunate because it is possible for these 4 players to make top 4 in this tournament, which means they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. But because of the way it was randomly seeded, 2 of these players are making $2K.
Yeah. Yep.
Group G. So here's a good example of a pool where they could probably take of 2 of those 4 players and swap them with 2 of these players.
Yep.
I haven't really heard of any of these players. I've heard of Rain Pro a little bit, but not there's no household names in this group that I'd be like, oh yeah, this player's clearly going to win this group and could potentially make top 8 in Capcom Cup. I
can't do that here.
No, I can't. I mean, I'm just being honest. I really haven't heard of any of these players. I've heard of CFF Online and Street Fighter V.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I played him in online a bit, and he's a strong player. Mm-hmm. It's just not who I would have guessed to be in Capcom Cup.
And then the final group here.
Yeah, so whoever wins Last Chance Qualifier has a really good chance of winning this group because the only other player I've really heard of is Dual Kevin.
Yeah.
And like I said, at least from my point of view, he's one of those players where like he's strong enough to make top 8 at a major, but I wouldn't bet on him winning it. Mm-hmm. Like if Punk's in the tournament, I expect Punk to go further. If Kaba in the tournament, I expect Kaba to go further, or Mena, or even Ending Walker. I feel like Dual Kevin is like just below that top tier player status.
If those players who have won those big titles are the S tier, he's right behind in the A kind of, right? Like he's a contender, but he's not really going to take it. He could, like you said, be in the top 8 or whatever.
Right. And so if 2 players make it out of this group, it's more than likely going to be the LCQ and Dual Kevin.
Yeah, that's true.
That's just my guess.
I don't know this name as well either.
No, Kusanagi, that's confusing. Is there a player that was eliminated in the LCQ? If we scroll down. Right there, Kusanagi Luke. Is that the same name?
Yeah, it's got to be because it also says Luke up here too.
No, it says Ken.
Oh.
I'm wondering if it's just 2 strong players that go by the tag Kusanagi. Because you wouldn't be able to be in the LCQ if you're already in the cup.
Yeah.
It's got to be 2 players.
Huh.
Actually, really quick, if we Google what the word Kusanagi means in English, because I'm assuming it's a Japanese name.
Meaning? Japanese grass mower.
But is there a translation? Is it a kind of samurai sword?
Where are you seeing that? Right here?
Yeah.
The miraculous sword that the sun goddess...
I wonder if it's like a Japanese Excalibur.
Oh, okay.
And so that's what I was considering. Is like maybe it's a word that means something, and it's just a coincidence that there's 2 players that picked that.
Interesting.
Yeah, so maybe it's just, the name of a cool Japanese sword. And so, it just so happens that there's 2 top players that chose that gamer tag. One of them being a Luke main that almost made it out of the LCQ. Another one being a Ken main that's in the Capcom Cup.
And will be in the same pool as the winner of the LCQ.
Yeah, with Punk.
Yeah. So, like, as far as... we talked about how it was last year, how it is this year. What do you think Capcom should do with Capcom Cup for next year? And to add on to that, do you think that is going to be something that they're going to talk about this year when Capcom Cup's all over or while that's going on?
I would be surprised if they talk... Well, 2 things. One, I would be surprised if they already have plans for next year. I don't think they do. And if they did, I don't think they would talk about it here. So basically, in my mind, no chance that they're going to start talking about next year's Capcom Cup at this time.
Okay.
We'll probably hear it.
Not even like the season, because we're already in February. When does this season actually start?
Oh, you mean like the next season, like season 2?
Yeah, like if they were to be like, okay, like we've heard your claims on Twitter, we know that you weren't happy with how all this went down, and as this year has progressed, we've been fine-tuning and working on how we're going to do it. So now that Capcom X is concluded or about to conclude, here is how our players will be, conducting and getting their points this year on.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the timeline is going to work out because, like, the DLC characters that were announced are for the first year of Street Fighter 6, but they didn't necessarily state that it's for season 1 of Street Fighter 6. You would assume that they both mean the same thing, but it could just mean they're both for the first calendar year or the first 12 months since the game released.
Yeah.
But people are itching for a balance patch.
Yeah.
So the question is like, Ed's going to be coming out like 2 days after Capcom Cup.
Yes.
Akuma's going to be coming out relatively shortly after that. Hopefully. And so the question is, like, when are we getting the big balance patch? I am assuming that happens at the same time that Season 2 of Street Fighter 6 starts. But is that going to be after Akuma? Is it going to be with Akuma? I really don't know. And I think it's going to be sometime around Akuma coming out, or maybe a month or two after Akuma coming out, where we're really going to find out when Season 2 of Street Fighter 6 starts, when the big balance patch is coming, and probably more information on next year's Capcom Cup.
Okay. Because I would say that the release of Akuma is probably what people are most excited about for DLC. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Without a doubt.
Like, hands down, he's the most popular character for this season, and even a bigger scale than that. But Capcom either is working on this and saying, you know what, when Akuma comes out, he's going to shake things up so much, we need to release him with a patch. And we need to give people the balance adjustments that they've been kind of asking for or looking for, and what Akuma brings to the game that we now need to adjust because he's just going to tip the scales that much. Or, like you also said, they put him out, test the waters, and then I would imagine a month or two later, but that still kind of puts in an awkward timeline because he has a release date for spring.
Right.
And EVO has already been announced with the games that they're going to be, and they are at the end of July this year?
I think so.
Because last year was the beginning of August, now it's like right at the end of July. So that also doesn't give the players a whole lot of time to transition into what the game has changed into, I would say.
Yeah, and it would also be really strange, I think, if we have 2 EVOs in a row on the same balance patch.
That would be horrible. Yeah, that would not be progressive at all. And I think that even despite people being excited for Akuma, if the game's not having a big shakeup this stage in the game, I think by the year anniversary of the game there has to be some patch.
Right. And it came out beginning of June. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, June 2nd is when it came out.
Yeah.
So I feel like we need something by that time, and to give players enough time to adapt, if not with the release of Akuma.
Yeah, and so, they need time for the patch to come out, maybe like 2 or 3 months before EVO, I think would be most fair.
Yeah, because the end of spring is considered May, I think May 15th or 20th or something like that.
Which is, 2 weeks before the year anniversary?
Exactly. So I feel like we need some... If Akuma is scheduled for a spring release with no solid date, that's the latest that he can realistically come out to be on time. And what else does that bring so that we have a whole new season? We can reinvigorate some players who have kind of fallen off because the meta is grown a little stale for them or whatever.
Right, or some of the characters that they keep seeing. So many Lukes, so many JPs and DJs.
Kens and everything else. Yeah.
Not enough lilies.
Not enough lilies, 100%, yeah. And so I guess with that also being said, I wanted to ask you about Ed.
Yep.
What do you think of what you've seen of Ed so far, since he is going to be playable at Capcom Cup X and available immediately after for everyone else to play?
So I was not an Ed made in Street Fighter V, and I've seen what he can do in Street Fighter 6 from the trailer and like the gameplay explanations that Capcom put out.
Yeah, which were amazing, by the way. They were very, very detailed.
Very well done.
And not just showed you how to play the character, but how to counter the character, too, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, it kind of goes to show you that they actually have like a thought process behind some of these attacks.
Yeah.
But that being said, from what I could see, it seems like Ed has so many tools.
Yeah, he's
so many things that he can do. And so it makes me wonder, unless some of these tools are relatively useless, I think he has so many tools, it's going to be hard to keep him in line. Mm-hmm. Kind of like an Akuma, where it's like, Akuma has so many tools, it almost doesn't matter how weak you make him, because he has all the tools. He can always have the right answer for every situation. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I kind of see with that gameplay trailer for Ed being like, oh, he has so many different tools that he can use. Unless some of these tools end up being pretty crappy, I think he's going to be top tier immediately.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Did you watch us react to the Ed trailer at all?
I didn't have a chance to watch it yet.
if you haven't yet, please go check that out on the channel, because we made a big deal of it. It's like 45 minutes long, and it went from seeing his reveal trailer, which I was I found underwhelming, and kind of made me be like, I guess I'm waiting for Akuma then, because it just does not look good, to being absolutely blown away by his gameplay reveal and going, okay, I think I found the next character I'm going to be messing around with.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think that Capcom should probably release both around the same time. So it's like, here's the cinematic and storyline stuff for some of the more casual players, if you're into that. And then here's the nitty-gritty stuff for the competitive players.
Yeah, because that was, we only reacted to it on the channel because we thought if the gameplay reveal was going to be so bad, we would tie it in with that and just kind of be like, this looks awful.
Right, like 2 slam dunks.
Yeah, basically. Space. And, I don't want to talk negatively about the game, but I have to share my opinion. Even if it's a character that I was excited about coming out, I'm going to be honest about it, But I was obviously very, very surprised, and I do agree. I think he is going to definitely be a problem. My brother said he looks annoying. He said that basically when he saw JP, he knew that character was going to be a problem. And he's looking at Ed right now thinking that this is going to be a problem because he is more different than he is the same from his Street Fighter V counterpart.
That's fair. He almost looks like a new character.
Yeah, because he's a full-on boxer.
Yep, no kicks.
No kicks, and he's got the flicker punches instead, which are, his kick buttons and stuff. Do you plan on trying him at all?
I do. Part of me is torn on like the DLC structure from Capcom, and so I actually haven't bought like Rashid or Aki.
Oh wow!
And so like I feel like instead of buying all the characters by default, I have to feel like very strongly about a character to actually like pull out my wallet and buy them.
Wow!
And so with Ed, I think I'm gonna try him out like at Button Club, like on the side. But I'm not gonna be. I'm not going to buy him right away, and I think I'll only buy him if I like him enough to like want to pick him up as like a 3rd or 4th character.
Wow. So Ed coming out at the end of February, right after Capcom Cup, and the last time we've seen a DLC character was Aki all the way back in September.
Is that right?
It's been 5 months since we've had a character release, which I would say is that drip feed of content is kind of also slowed down the pacing of the game and the popularity of it, and people were, including myself, kind of. I really thought when they said winter of 2024 that he would be January.
Right.
Maybe to even kind of compete with Tekken 8 coming out, like, hey, don't forget about us. We still got some things going on, but it ends up being at the end. So how do you feel about that? Like,
I mean, it could be smart that they don't release them right around the time of Tekken because everyone's so hype about Tekken that they can kind of be forgotten about. But yeah, having 5 months between DLC characters in the same season without explicitly saying like, oh yeah, we have a big gap in between these characters. I mean, I don't think anybody's pleased about it.
No kidding. Yeah. Because for the game to be out for 8 months.
And have a 5-month gap.
Because the game came out, then Rashid hit us right away and was able to be available at EVO. And then it felt like shortly after that, when we were still talking about what happened at EVO, Aki came out. So like the rush of content in the beginning was great. The holidays hit, everything dipped drastically, and now we're here like dying for this new content, no?
Right, yeah, so I really hope that, Ed's obviously coming out right after Capcom Cup. I hope Akuma comes out sooner than later, and then I'm just really anxious to see when the balance patch is coming and when Season 2 officially begins, and the sooner the better.
Yeah, of course. What do you think about Capcom Cup X not having any new content to show or tease? They posted that disclaimer on Twitter recently, basically saying, hey, look forward to the action, but we're not going to be revealing anything at Capcom X. What do you think about that?
So I'm very appreciative that they were very upfront about it.
Agreed.
And I kind of don't mind that they're not going to be releasing news or content at the Capcom Cup. I feel like Capcom is big enough of a company, and also they have a pretty niche fan base where they don't necessarily need to announce these things at the events that has the most views. I feel like, similar to the Ed information, they just posted it on Twitter whenever it was available, and everybody knows about it. And so I feel like actually spreading out your information releases is actually probably better because they have a constant source of attention on their stuff. So instead of having something really big like Capcom Cup and attaching big news to it, it's kind of like, well, why don't we do the Capcom Cup by itself and have the big news 2 weeks later? And now we have 2 big bursts of attention separated. So
I agree.
It actually makes sense.
I agree. I thought the same thing. I basically was like, if you show anything Akuma related at Capcom Cup, you've immediately made Ed's excitement and release cheapened.
Right. And also you didn't get any extra eyes on it because it's not like there's extra people turning into Capcom Cup just because of Akuma stuff. So it's like you kind of wasted the Akuma views on stuff that people are already watching.
Yeah. And also taking the spotlight off of the player that just won $1 million, right? I would rather remember that weekend and say to myself, man, that was the weekend that so-and-so
Punk became a millionaire.
Punk or Mano became a millionaire, as opposed to saying, did you catch Capcom Cup? Akuma looks sick.
Yeah, you got the air fireball and everything.
Yep. Drive Rush, Raging Demon, I can't wait. So I
Modern Raging Demon?
Yeah. So I agree with you completely. It was great that they were transparent about that and got that out of the way. And I know people were disappointed, and maybe I was also slightly disappointed, but in the timeline of everything else, it also kind of made sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say about Capcom Cup 10?
I think we said it. I mean, there's a lot of excitement. There's going to be a lot of matches over the next couple of days and couple of weeks. The schedule of it is today's Saturday the 17th.
Yes.
And so next Sunday is going to be the top 16 finals of Capcom Cup, and I'm super excited to watch.
Hell yeah. And hopefully you guys are excited to watch too. And if you care enough to even watch this, then hopefully you care enough to watch Capcom Cup. That's going to do it for this episode of the Safe Sets podcast. We really hope that you've enjoyed as much as we have enjoyed talking about what we love here, Street Fighter and everything else fighting game related. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe for more content, hit the bell notification so that you are told every time that we post a video. And share with your friends. Maybe they are interested in the discussion and they want to comment down below too what they're thinking. Don't forget to comment your top 3 for the whole shebanga or for the LCQ.
Do both. Let us know your top 3 picks for the LCQ and your top 3 picks for the Capcom Cup.
That's right. All right, guys. We will catch you on the next. I've been Shadow Fury. He's been Ricky Icebeam.
And stay safe.
Stay safe. We'll catch you on the next one. Thank you so much.